My name is Daisy. I'm 22 years old. The restaurant was the kind of place my mother loved. Heavy silver, quiet waiters, and a bill that cost more than my monthly rent. It was supposed to be my pre-graduation dinner. My sister Avery sat across from me, her phone held up and aimed straight at my face. Her thumb was on the record button. She was waiting for the show. My mother slid a thick white envelope across the polished dark wood of the table. It felt cold. "This is so you understand where we stand, Daisy," she said, her voice perfectly smooth. I opened it. It wasn't a graduation card. It was a formal disownment letter. It was a legal document, full of hard, empty words, severing me from them completely. My father's neat signature was at the bottom. My mother's was next to it. And right below theirs, in her perfect, looping script, was Avery's. They all watched me, hungry for tears. They wanted me to scream, to beg, to fall apart. I read every single word. Then I folded the letter once, creased it sharply with my nail, and folded it again. I slipped it into my purse. I didn't say a word. I just met their eyes one by one. They thought they were ending my story. They had no idea they were about to star in theirs. But before I tell you how everything flipped, like and subscribe, drop a comment. Where are you watching from? My house was not a home. It was a showroom. Everything was polished in its right place and meant to be seen from the outside. Love wasn't a given, like the air you breathe. It was a bonus, a commission. It was something you earned, and the metrics for earning it were very, very clear. My father, Richard, valued one thing: accomplishments. My mother, Eleanor, valued one thing: appearances. My sister, Avery, was a natural at both. And then there was me. I don't have a single memory of my father asking me how I felt about something. He asked what I did. Dinner conversations were not about our day. They were verbal AM reports. He'd sit at the head of the long mahogany table, looking at us over his glasses. "Avery," he'd say, "how's the debate prep? Your coach said you're on track for the state finals." "I am," Avery would say, smiling perfectly. "I'm projected to take first." "Good. First is where we aim." He'd nod, taking a bite. "Anything else is a waste of time." Then his eyes would land on me. The heavy, quiet pause. "Daisy," he'd say, "your grades are stable." "Yes, sir." "All A's." "Good. That's the baseline. That's maintenance." He'd turn back to Avery. "Now, about that internship at the law firm." Avery's accomplishments were shiny. They came with trophies, plaques, and titles. She was debate captain, class president, and, for a while, a nationally ranked equestrian. Her trophies cluttered the living room mantel. My father would polish them himself on Saturday mornings. They were proof. They were measurable success. My accomplishments were quiet. I got A's. I read a lot of books. I learned how to code by myself in my room. These things were invisible. They didn't come with a ceremony. They didn't have a cash value he could brag about at the country club. They were just maintenance, the baseline, nothing to celebrate. My mother was different, but the same. Her currency was beauty, social grace, and how things looked. Our family had to look perfect. My mother spent hours managing this image. She managed the charity galas, she managed the garden parties, and most of all, she managed Avery. Avery was her living doll. "Avery, darling, that blue dress brings out your eyes." "Avery, stand up straight, Mrs. Henderson is watching." "Avery's skin is just flawless, isn't it?" Avery soaked it up. She learned to perform. She had the perfect smile, the perfect handshake, the perfect, effortless laugh that made older women adore her. My mother looked at me with a kind of quiet, constant disappointment. I was not a doll. I was plain. That was the word she used most. "Daisy, your hair is so plain. Can't we do something with it? Daisy, that color does nothing for you. It just makes you look plain." I was the unremarkable daughter. This was my official, unspoken title. When my parents had guests, the performance was always the same. "You know our Avery, of course," my mother would say, beaming, as Avery glided into the room to shake hands. "She's just decided on Yale, and her law internship is already asking her to come back next summer." "A true Sterling," the guests would say, just like her father. Then I would walk in. I always felt like I was interrupting. My mother's smile would tighten. "And this is our Daisy." The pause was everything. The tone was an apology. "This is the other one, the one that doesn't shine. Please don't look too closely." The guests would give me a quick, Polite nod and then immediately turn back to Avery. Now, Avery, tell us about the fundraiser. I wasn't just in Avery's shadow. I was in the shadow of the entire house. I was the one part of the showroom that didn't match. I was the single beige cushion on a couch of vibrant, expensive silk. I learned to make myself small. I learned to be quiet. I learned that my father would only speak to me if I won something, and my mother would only speak to me if I was dressed for a photo. The rest of the time, I didn't really exist. Avery, meanwhile, was not just the golden child. She was the gatekeeper. She had absorbed my parents' values perfectly. She knew I was a disappointment to them, and it gave her a strange power over me. "Mom's stressed, Daisy," she'd tell me. "Just try to look nice tonight, okay? Don't be you." "What does that mean?" I'd ask. "It means don't be so quiet. It's weird. People notice. But if I tried to talk, Daisy, no one wants to hear about your coding project," she'd hiss at me in the kitchen. "It's boring." Just smile. I was trapped. I was too quiet, or I was too boring. I was too plain, or I was trying too hard. No matter what I did, I was wrong. The rules were simple. Be Avery or be invisible. I chose invisible. It hurt less. I learned to live in the margins. I ate breakfast alone before anyone woke up. I did my homework in the library so I wouldn't be in the way. I learned to move through the house like a ghost. I became the unremarkable daughter. I became the background noise, the wallpaper, the girl who was always just out of frame in the family photos. Love wasn't free. Love was earned. And I, it seemed, was not a good earner. I was a bad investment. I was the child they introduced with an apologetic sigh. Being the invisible child is a full-time job. You learn to read the energy in a room. You learn to walk without making the floorboards creak. You learn to need nothing, so you are never a burden. Family dinners were the worst. They were not meals. They were performances. Every single night. My father would sit at the head, my mother at the foot. Avery would sit to my father's right. I sat to his left. The spotlight was always on Avery. "I finalized my summer travel plans," Avery announced one night. "I'll be in Paris for June working on my language intensive, and then I'm flying to Geneva for the Young Leaders Summit." "Geneva," my father said, nodding with approval. "Excellent. That's a great network to build. And the photos will be stunning," my mother added. "We must get you a new wardrobe for Paris. That city has expectations." I sat there pushing a piece of broccoli around my plate. I had spent my entire day in the computer lab, working on a complex problem for my senior project. I had finally, after 6 weeks, gotten the code to run without a single error. I was proud. I felt a small, stupid spark of hope. "I finished my capstone project today," I said into the silence. My father didn't look up. "That's nice." My mother smiled at her plate. "That's good, dear." Avery took a sip of water. "Speaking of projects, my partner for the summit is the son of Senator Phillips. It's going to be a lot of pressure." And just like that, I was gone. The conversation moved on. My 6 weeks of work, my moment of pride, was dismissed in 2 seconds. It wasn't a state final. It wasn't Geneva. It didn't have a name brand attached. It didn't count. I was wallpaper. I was the silent witness to my own family's life, so I built a life outside the house. I got a job. I didn't need the money, not really. My father gave me a small, sterile allowance. But I needed to be seen. I needed to exist somewhere. I got a job as a barista at a coffee shop on the other side of town. The daily grind. It was the least sterling place imaginable. It smelled like burnt coffee and cinnamon. The floors were always a little sticky. The customers were students, construction workers, and tired nurses from the hospital nearby. It was the most honest place I had ever been. At home, I was a ghost. At the grind, I was Daisy, the one who remembers my order. "A large black coffee, 2 sugars," I'd say to Mr. Henderson, a truck driver. "You got it, kid." "You're the best," he'd say. "1 caramel latte extra hot for Maria," I'd call out. Maria, a nurse, would grab it. "Daisy, you're a lifesaver." Thank you, good job. You're the best." These simple, everyday words felt like tiny, warm lights. At home, my existence was a problem to be managed. At the grind, my existence was useful. I was a person. I made coffee, I wiped counters, I took out the trash. And at the end of my shift, my manager, a woman named Lena, would say, "Good shift, Daisy. See you Thursday." It was real. It wasn't a performance. It was just work. It felt more like family than my family did. The biggest test came in my junior year. I had been working on my own, applying for scholarships. I didn't want to rely on my father's money. I wanted something that was mine. One afternoon, I got a large envelope. It was the Corden Tech Scholarship. It was a major national scholarship, a full ride for my final 2 years, plus a grant for a research project. It was $100,000. It was a huge accomplishment. It was measurable. It was prestigious. This, I thought, this they will have to see. I waited until dinner. I was shaking. I held the letter in my lap under the table. I have some news, I said, my voice too loud. All 3 of them looked at me, annoyed by the interruption. I won the Corden Tech Scholarship. The what? My father said, frowning. The Corden Tech Scholarship. It's a national award. It's a full ride. Oh, how wonderful. My mother cut in, her bright, fake smile snapping into place. That's lovely, dear. Corden, is that a good name? Yes, it's very well known. In tech. Well, that's just fantastic, my father said. He took a sip of wine. Good, that'll look solid on your record. And that was it. He turned to Avery. Avery, your mother tells me you're thinking about redecorating your room. It was gone. The moment was over. My $100,000 victory. My national award. It was solid on my record. It was lovely. It was nothing. Later that night, my mother came to my room. I'll post about your scholarship on Facebook, dear, she said, looking at her phone. It'll be nice for the family friends to see. Okay, I said. Thanks, Mom. I waited. I checked her Facebook page the next day. Nothing. I checked the day after. Nothing. That Friday, a new post went up. It was a long, gushing paragraph about Avery being accepted into a summer program. It had 5 photos, including one of Avery on a horse. The post got over 200 likes. My scholarship was never mentioned. Not that day, not ever. I stood in my room looking at her social media page, and I felt something break. It wasn't anger. It was a cold, quiet final click. Like a lock setting into place, they hadn't just forgotten. It wasn't important enough to remember. It wasn't a trip to Paris. It wasn't a photo of her on a horse. It was just me. It was just my plain, boring tech award. I finally understood. Their attention was a currency. It was a limited resource, and they had spent it all on Avery. I was a bad investment, and they had cut their losses. I would never be given a single share. Fine, I thought. I stopped trying to earn it. I stopped asking. I stopped hoping. If I was going to have any currency in this world, I would have to make it myself. Graduation was approaching. It felt like walking through a fog. Other students were celebrating, taking pictures by the campus fountain, having parties with their families. I just went to my classes, finished my exams, and worked my shifts at the grind. My family, of course, was focused on Avery. She wasn't graduating, but she had just been named to the dean's distinguished list, a thing they invented for donors' children. It meant another dinner, another round of applause, another photo for my mother's Facebook. My graduation was just a date on the calendar, an obligation. A few days before the ceremony, my phone buzzed. It was a group text from my mother. It wasn't a message. It was just a link, a reservation link for a restaurant called Maison Lumière. It was one of those incredibly expensive, quiet places my mother loved. The kind of place where the waiters judge your shoes. The text below the link said, Pre-graduation dinner, Friday, 7 p.m. Be on time. No. Are you excited, Daisy? No, we're so proud of you. Just an order. A summons. I felt the familiar, tired sickness in my stomach. But I clicked the link. I had to confirm my attendance, or I'd get a follow-up text from Avery, scolding me for being difficult. The reservation page loaded. It was a confirmation screen. Reservation for Richard Sterling. Date, Friday, November 14th. Time, 7 p.m. Party size, 3. I stared at the number. 3, not 4. 3. Richard, Eleanor, Avery. I read it 5, 6, 10 times. My brain tried to make an excuse. Maybe I was supposed to make my own reservation. No, that made no sense. Maybe it was a different dinner? No. The text said pre-graduation dinner. The number sat there on the screen. Party size 3. It was a mistake. It had to be a mistake, a typo. But it didn't feel like a mistake. It felt like a decision. It felt like all the other mistakes that had happened my entire life. The time they forgot to pick me up from the airport. The time my name was accidentally left off the family pass to the country club. I took a screenshot. My hands were shaking, but not from sadness. It was a cold, sharp feeling. It was the feeling of being proven right. I sent a text just to my mother, not to the group, me. Hi, Mom, I saw the reservation link. It says party of 3, is that a typo? I watched my phone. The 3 dots appeared. She was typing. The dots vanished. She was gone. The message was read, no reply. I sat on my bed in my dorm room. The silence from her phone was louder than a scream. She had seen my question, and she had refused to answer it. 5 minutes later, my phone buzzed again. It was Avery. Avery, Mom's busy trying to find something for you to wear. It's just formatting, Daisy. Dad probably just clicked the wrong button. Don't be so dramatic. Of course you're supposed to come. It's your dinner, sort of. It's just formatting. The word echoed in my head. Formatting. That's all I was. A line item. A piece of text that could be bolded or italicized or deleted. Party size, 4. Delete. Party size, 3. It was so clean. So simple, don't be so dramatic. That was the family motto. My feelings were drama. My pain was an inconvenience. My existence was a formatting error. It's your dinner, sort of. That was the line that truly hit home. Sort of. It was my graduation, but it was sort of my celebration. It was my life, but I was sort of a member of the family. I closed my eyes. I pictured them at the table. My father checking his stock alerts. My mother scanning the room to see who was there. Avery talking about her next big success. And me, the formatting error. The sort of guest of honor. I finally understood my place. I was not a daughter. I was an option. I was a box they forgot to check. I was optional. I was forgettable. I was removable. They were not just neglecting me. They were actively, quietly, and efficiently erasing me. I texted Avery back. Me, okay, see you Friday, I would go. I would go to my sort of dinner. I would sit at the table where they had booked a party of 3. I would be the formatting error in person, because I had a secret. They thought they were formatting me. They had no idea I was formatting my entire future, a future that did not include them. My family thought I spent my nights studying in the library. They thought I was working extra shifts at the coffee shop. I was, but I was also doing something else. I was building a new life. I was building a company. It didn't start as a company. It started as a puzzle. At the daily grind, I watched the deliveries come in every morning. The milk truck, the pastry van, the paper supplies truck. They always came at the wrong times. The milk would arrive during the morning rush, blocking the door. The paper supplies would come when Lena, my manager, was trying to close out the cash register. It was a mess. It was inefficient. It cost us time and it cost us money. I saw the problem. And I thought, I can fix this. I started in my dorm room with a notebook. I sketched out a simple idea. What if a system could talk to all the suppliers at once? What if it could analyze a coffee shop's busy times and schedule deliveries only during the slow times? What if it could track inventory in real time so we never ordered too much milk or too few cups? It was a logistics problem. And I was good at problems. I took the idea to my computer science professor. He told me it was promising but complex. He introduced me to 2 other students, Ethan and Maya. They were my first real partners. They were the first people, outside of my boss Lena, who looked at one of my ideas and didn't call it boring. Ethan was a genius coder. He was pale, lived on energy drinks, and could make a computer do anything. But he couldn't talk to people. Maya was a business major. She was all charisma. She could sell ice in the Arctic. She saw my notebook and her eyes lit up. Daisy, she said, this isn't a project. This is a product. We became a team. We lived in a forgotten study room in the basement of the engineering building. We covered the walls in whiteboards. We argued, we worked, we forgot to sleep. They didn't see me as plain or unremarkable. They saw me as the architect. I had the vision. I saw the whole puzzle. We called it RootFlow. The concept was simple. Our algorithm analyzed a company's entire supply chain, from the warehouse shelf to the customer's hand, and found the waste. It found the empty trucks, the inefficient routes, the wasted time. Then it created a new optimized plan. In our first simulation, using data from a local grocery chain, our algorithm cut their logistics costs by 12%, 12%. That wasn't just maintenance. That was a revolution. We built a working demo. Maya, using her nonstop energy, got us a tiny booth at the University Tech Symposium. It was a big hall filled with flashy robotics projects and virtual reality demos. And then there was us. Our little booth with a laptop showing spreadsheets and flowcharts. No one stopped. Not for the first 2 hours. They walked right by. I started to feel the old familiar sting of being invisible. "It's the data, Daisy," Ethan mumbled, nervously adjusting his glasses. "People don't like data. It's not sexy." "Just wait," Maya said, her smile bright and firm. "The right person will see it." She was right. A man stopped. He wasn't flashy. He wore a simple gray suit, no tie. He looked about 40. He watched our demo loop for a full 3 minutes. He didn't look at us. He just looked at the screen. Then he turned to me. "Who wrote the core algorithm?" he asked. His voice was quiet. "I did," I said. "Explain the data integration to me," he said. So I did. I talked for 10 minutes. I told him how it handled vendor APIs, how it used machine learning to predict peak times. He just nodded. He didn't smile. He asked 3 more questions. They were hard questions. They were the right questions. He handed me a business card. "Nathan Cole, CEO, Cole Logistics." My heart stopped. Cole Logistics was one of the biggest shipping companies in the country. "My office, Monday, 9 a.m., he said. "All 3 of you, and bring your lawyer." Then he just walked away. The meeting was not in a boardroom. It was in a small, quiet coffee shop. Mr. Cole sat across from us with 2 other people. He didn't waste time. "RootFlow is not a student project," he said, stirring his black coffee. "It is a multi-million-dollar asset. My team has spent the weekend trying to find a flaw in your data. We found one minor bug." Ethan visibly winced. "But your core concept," Mr. Cole continued, "is the most disruptive piece of code I've seen in a decade. It will save my company. Well, it will save us a lot." He slid a folder across the table. "We're not interested in a partnership. We want an acquisition. We want to buy RootFlow, and we want to hire the people who built it." I opened the folder. I read the number on the first page. 6.2 million. I felt the air leave my lungs. I looked at Ethan. He was white as a ghost. Maya was just smiling. "There's more," Mr. Cole said, looking at me. "The money is for the platform, but the platform is useless without the architect. The offer is contingent on you, Ms. Sterling, joining Cole Logistics as our new Director of Optimization. Director of Optimization. Ms. Sterling." I looked at the number. 6.2 million. I looked at the title. Director. I thought about my father, who called my A's maintenance. I thought about my mother, who called me plain. I thought about Avery, who called me boring. I thought about the reservation for 3. I closed the folder. I looked Nathan Cole in the eyes. "We accept," I said. We signed the papers 2 days later. It was quiet. There was no fanfare. No champagne. Just lawyers and the quiet scratch of pens on thick paper. The money, my lawyer explained, would be in an escrow account, to be divided between me, Ethan, and Maya, and transferred the moment the acquisition was announced, which he said would be Friday night. Friday. The night of my sort of dinner, I walked out of the lawyer's office. The check for my share, a life-changing amount of money, was being processed. My new employment contract with my new title was in my briefcase. I didn't tell my family. This wasn't a trophy for my father's mantle. This wasn't a pretty picture for my mother's Facebook. This was mine. I had built it in the dark. I had built it in silence. While they were busy ignoring me, I had been building my own value. They thought I was wallpaper. They were about to find out I was the foundation. The 2 days between signing the acquisition papers and the pre-graduation dinner were the quietest days of my life. The world was moving at full speed, but my dorm room felt like the calm center of a hurricane. The money was in escrow. The press releases were being drafted. My new life was loading, but it hadn't buffered yet. I didn't celebrate. I didn't call anyone. I didn't buy champagne. Instead, I began to prepare. I went to an office supply store. Not the little campus shop, but a big, sterile superstore off the highway. I walked past the colorful binders, the trendy notebooks, and the glitter pens. I went to the back aisle, the one for lawyers and accountants. I bought one black leather-bound 3-ring binder. It was heavy and had a hard, professional snap when it closed. I bought a pack of heavyweight sheet protectors. I bought a set of simple blank divider tabs. That night, my roommate was at the library. The dorm was quiet. I sat at my small desk, and I began to build my case. First, I printed the main documents. My cheap, rattling inkjet printer felt too small for the job. It slowly spit out page after page, the ink still faintly damp. I printed the full 20-page acquisition contract. I printed the final signature page, with my name and Nathan Cole's name side by side. I printed my new employment contract. Director of Optimization. I printed the finalized embargoed press release that would be sent to the media outlets at 9 p.m. on Friday. I slid each page into a plastic protector. The smooth, clean plastic felt like armor. This was not an idea. This was not a nice project. It was paper. It was ink. It was real. Then I went deeper. I was my father's daughter in one way. I understood the value of a paper trail. He valued accomplishments, but what he really valued was proof of those accomplishments. He was a man who kept receipts. I would show him my receipts. I logged into the RootFlow admin panel. I printed the executive summaries. I printed the 12-month growth projection, showing the 12% cost-saving analysis. I printed the list of our initial beta test clients and their glowing testimonials. I printed the technical specifications of the core algorithm I had written. It was 50 pages of code, my code, a language my family had never bothered to learn. I 3-hole punched everything. I organized it all in the binder. Tab 1, Acquisition. Tab 2, Employment. Tab 3, Asset Value. Tab 4, Intellectual Property. I was organizing it with a kind of surgical precision. This wasn't just a collection of papers. It was a final report. It was the dissertation of my entire life, the part they had never bothered to read. As I worked, I thought about all the times my work had been dismissed. Don't be boring, Daisy. That's nice, dear. It's just formatting. This binder was the answer. It was 100 pages of boring. It was a multi-million-dollar nice project. It was the formatting that was about to restructure their entire reality. I also secured the digital trail. I saved every signed document, every email from Nathan Cole, every wire transfer confirmation from the lawyers onto 2 separate high-encryption USB drives. I put them on my keychain. They could argue with paper. They could not argue with a 256-bit encrypted file. Avery loved to twist words. She could not twist this. When the binder was full, I closed it. The cover snapped shut with a solid, satisfying thwack. It was heavy in my lap. It was the heaviest thing I had ever held. I sat there for a long time. I was ready for Friday. I started to clean my room, getting ready to move out of the dorms for good. In the back of my desk drawer under a pile of old notebooks was a small pink shoebox. I opened it. It was full of old memories. Movie stubs, a dried flower, a few photos, and a card. It was a birthday card. From my 8th birthday. The front had a cartoon drawing of a girl looking at the stars. I opened it. The handwriting was my father's. Back then, his writing was warmer, less sharp. It said, "To my little dreamer, never stop reaching. I am so proud of you. Love, Dad." I ran my finger over the word, proud. I remembered that day. He had given me a telescope. We had stayed up late, and he had pointed out the constellations. He had been patient. He had been warm. When did that man disappear? When did I stop being his little dreamer and start being his maintenance problem? Was it when I turned 12 and was still quiet? Was it when Avery started winning trophies and I just kept reading books? Was it when he realized my dreams weren't the ones he could brag about on the golf course? I felt a sudden sharp ache. It was a cold, old grief. It was for the father I had, for about 10 minutes, and then lost. I looked at the thick black binder on my desk. Then I looked at the small, faded card in my hand. To my little dreamer, Director of Optimization, he told me to never stop reaching. But he had stopped watching. I carefully placed the acquisition letter on my desk, and I placed the small, faded card right next to it. I stared at them both. One was the promise. The other was the proof. And I realized the most important thing. I wasn't doing this for his approval. Approval was cheap. It was a word he could give and take away. Like the word proud. I was doing this for the proof. Proof is permanent. Proof is a fact. It doesn't care if you're proud. It doesn't care if you're paying attention. It just is. Proof means more than approval. I slid the card back into the box. I didn't need it anymore. I had the binder. Maison Lumière was exactly as I expected. It was a tomb. It was so quiet you could hear the scrape of a fork on a plate from across the room. The air smelled like old money and lemon-scented floor wax. I was 5 minutes late. On purpose. When I walked in, the maitre d' looked up. He had a tight, disapproving face. "Good evening," he whispered. "I'm here for the Sterling reservation," I said. He looked at his screen. He frowned. "The Sterling party? It is a party of 3. They are already seated." "I know," I said. "I am the 4th. His frown deepened. He was confused. This restaurant did not like confusion. It was not on the menu. "One moment, miss." He glided over to their table. I watched from the doorway. I saw him lean down and whisper to my father. My father looked up. His face, which had been relaxed, tightened. He looked annoyed. My mother flashed a quick, bright, angry smile at the maitre d'. She whispered something. The maitre d' came back to me. His face was now a perfect cold mask. "Of course. My apologies. This way, Miss Sterling." They had added a 4th chair. It was a different style from the other 3, pulled from a different section. It was the physical proof of the formatting error. I was the extra chair. The afterthought. I sat down. "Daisy, you're late," my mother said. Her smile was a flat line. "You look clean." That was her highest compliment for me. Clean. I was wearing a simple black dress and my old plain flats. "Hello, Mother. Father, Avery." My father just nodded, already looking back at his phone. Avery gave me a tight, bright smile. "Hi, Daisy. Glad you could make it." Her phone was on the table, face up. I just knew. It was already recording audio. We sat in silence for a moment. A waiter poured water into my glass. "So," my father said, not looking up. "Graduation. It's done." "Good. Yes," I said. "It's done." "We're very proud of you, dear," my mother said, looking at the menu. "It's a wonderful accomplishment. An undergraduate degree." She said undergraduate degree like it was a participation trophy. "Avery is already fielding offers from 2 different firms for her post-law school career," my father added. "And she's still a year away from graduating." "That's wonderful, Avery," I said. "Thanks," Avery said, her smile getting wider. "It's just a lot. But someone has to raise the family profile." I was wallpaper. I was sitting at a table that was never meant for me, listening to a conversation I was not a part of. I was the invisible child all grown up. I took a sip of water. I waited. I knew this wasn't just a dinner. It was a meeting, and I had not been given the agenda. The appetizers came. They were tiny, expensive, and cold. My mother set down her fork. She looked at my father. He nodded. It was time. "Daisy," my mother started, her voice full of fake, practiced sadness. "Your father and Avery, we have been very worried about you." I kept my face perfectly still. "Worried? Why?" This drifting," my father cut in, finally putting his phone down. "This coffee shop job. Your lack of ambition. We've given you every opportunity, Daisy. The best schools. The best contacts. And you've done nothing with it." "I got a degree," I said, my voice quiet. "A degree is a baseline," he snapped. "It's maintenance. Avery is building a career. You are building lattes." Avery looked down, trying to hide her smirk. "We feel," my mother continued, "that you are not living up to the family standard, that you are, in fact, actively rejecting it. It's embarrassing for us, Daisy. When people ask what you are doing, we have to lie." "You don't have to lie," I said. "You could just tell them." "Tell them what?" Avery said, her voice sharp. "That my sister is a barista?" "No, thank you." I felt the binder in my bag heavy against my leg. "Not yet." A waiter approached. He was quiet, nervous. He was holding a single, thick, white envelope. It was the same kind of envelope as the one from the hook. Wait, the hook was this dinner. This is the moment. The waiter looked at my father. "Sir, you asked for this to be delivered?" "Yes, yes," my father said, waving his hand. "Give it to my daughter. To Daisy." The waiter set the envelope at my place. It was heavy. It had my name on it. Daisy Sterling. My heart wasn't pounding. It was cold. It was steady. Avery's phone was now held up just slightly. She was pretending to check a text. She was filming me. This was the show. I picked up the envelope. I looked at my mother's pitying face, my father's stern, righteous glare, Avery's hungry, waiting smile. They were waiting for me to break. They wanted the tears. They wanted the "how could you?" They wanted the drama they could feel good about. The tough love that was really just cruelty. I slid my finger under the flap and opened it. I pulled out the single thick piece of paper. I read it. It was a formal disownment letter. Hereby formally and irrevocably sever all familial ties. No further claim to the sterling name or estate. Effective immediately. It was all there. The cold, empty words they had used to erase me. And at the bottom, my father's signature, my mother's signature, and Avery's signature. My sister, my own sister, had signed a document to disown me. I read every word. I let the silence stretch. I could feel their eyes on me. I looked up. I folded the letter once. I creased it sharply with my nail. I folded it again. I did not put it in my purse. I placed it on the table next to my plate. I looked at my father. I looked at my mother. I looked at Avery. And then I said, in a very clear, very calm, very quiet voice, "Thank you." The reaction was immediate. It was not what they expected. My mother's perfectly sad face froze. Her mouth opened just slightly. My father's eyes widened. He actually leaned forward. What did you say?" Avery lowered her phone. Her smile was gone, replaced by a blank, total confusion. "Why would you? That's not... Daisy, are you sick?" "No," I said. "I'm not sick." I took a sip of water. I said, "Thank you. You've given me something I've needed for a very long time." We just disowned you!" Avery's voice was getting high. "This is serious." "I know," I said. "It's the most serious, most honest thing you've ever done. I'm grateful. It makes the next part so much simpler." And I reached down to my bag, and I pulled out my binder. I placed the black leather-bound binder on the table. It made a solid, heavy thud that cut through the restaurant's quiet. It was so much thicker than their single, flimsy envelope. My father stared at it. "What is this? More of your projects?" "In a way," I said. I opened the binder. The metal ring snapped open. It sounded like a gunshot in the silence. "You're right. We should be clear about where we all stand. We should have full transparency. You've shown me your paperwork. It's only fair I show you mine." Avery was staring, her face pale. She was no longer filming. My mother looked terrified. I turned to the first tab, Acquisition. I pulled out the top page. It was the draft of the press release. I slid it across the table to my father. He picked it up. He put on his reading glasses. His hands were, for the first time, not perfectly steady. "For immediate release," he read aloud, his voice low and confused. "Cole Logistics. Cole? Nathan Cole's company. Cole Logistics acquires RootFlow." He looked up at me. "What is RootFlow?" "That's my company," I said. "You don't have a company," Avery snapped. "You work at a coffee shop." "I did," I said, turning to her. "It's where I got the idea. You called it boring. Remember?" My father's eyes went back to the page. He kept reading. His voice was just a whisper now. "RootFlow, a logistics optimization platform. TAP's founder, Daisy Sterling. As new director of optimization." He dropped the page. It fluttered onto the table. "This is a joke," he said. But his voice had no power. "It's not," I said. I turned to the next page. It was the signature page for the acquisition. I slid it to him. "This is the acquisition summary." He stared at it. He couldn't see the words. He was just looking for the number. I pointed to it. "My partners and I sold RootFlow to Cole Logistics. The final price was $6.2 million, $6,200,000. The sound that came from my mother was a sharp gasp. It was ugly. It was the sound of a balloon popping. Avery's face fell. It didn't just fall. It collapsed. The color drained from her cheeks. Her mouth was open, her eyes wide. She looked cheap. All her expensive polish was gone. She looked small. No, you're lying." "Your father knows Nathan Cole's signature," I said. My father was trembling. Not a little shake. His whole body. He was tracing the signature with his finger. This is real. He said it to himself, not to me. "And this," I said, my voice cold and clear, "is my employment contract." I slid it over. "Director of Optimization. You'll note the salary. It's more than you make. And you'll note the start date." It was today. Silence. Total, absolute, broken silence. The three of them just stared. They stared at the papers. They stared at me. They were looking at me, really looking at me. for the first time in my life, and they didn't recognize me. My father was recalculating. I could see the numbers clicking in his head. The man who valued accomplishments was staring at the biggest accomplishment that had ever been at his table, and he had just disowned it. Avery was in shock. This was not in her script. This was not possible. I was the unremarkable one. I was the plain one. She was the star. Her world was tilting. My mother was the first to speak. Her voice was a cracked, desperate whisper. Daisy? Oh, Daisy. Why didn't you tell us? We didn't know. That was it. The line I had been waiting for my entire life. We didn't know. I looked her right in the eyes. I felt no anger. I felt no sadness. I felt nothing but the cold, hard weight of the truth. I know, I said. I know you didn't know, I continued, my voice as steady as a rock. You didn't know because you never asked. You didn't know because you never listened. You didn't know because I was in my room, coding for 6 months, and you never once opened the door to ask what I was doing. You didn't know because it was boring. I turned to my father. You didn't know because it didn't come with a trophy. Because you were too busy polishing Avery's potential to see my results. I looked at Avery. You didn't know because you were too busy recording my failures to ever notice my success. They flinched. All 3 of them. Daisy, my father started, his voice thick. This is wonderful. A misunderstanding. This disownment. It's just paper. We can tear it up. We are so proud. He said the word. Proud. It felt like acid. It's too late for that, I said. No, darling, it's not, my mother said, reaching her hand across the table. Her eyes were wet. They were real tears, finally. But they weren't tears for me. They were tears for her, for what she had just lost. We're your family. We can fix this. Fix what? I asked. There's nothing to fix. You've all been perfectly clear. You wrote it down. You signed it. You found me embarrassing. A failure. A girl who works in a coffee shop. But you're not. Avery cried out. You're a director. You're rich. I am, I said. I am all of those things. I was all of those things yesterday when you signed that letter. I was all of those things last week when you made a reservation for 3. The only thing that's changed is that now you know. The power in the room had shifted. It was a physical thing. It had moved from their side of the table to mine. They were no longer the judges. They were the defendants. And they were guilty. They were scrambling. Their faces were a mess of panic and greed and a new, horrible kind of respect. Daisy, sit down, my father said. He was trying to sound firm, but his voice was shaking. Let's not be hasty. This letter, it was a mistake, a scare tactic. To motivate you. A mistake? I said. You had a lawyer draft it. You all signed it. Avery, you signed it. That's not a mistake. That's a choice. I thought, Avery stammered. I thought we were helping you. I didn't know you were this. A person of value. A person of a certain dollar amount. We can fix this, Daisy, my mother pleaded. She was trying to cry, but also trying not to ruin her makeup. We'll tear up the letter. We'll have another dinner. A real celebration. We'll tell everyone. You'll tell everyone now? I asked. You'll post on Facebook now? Now that my name is attached to a number you approve of? Yes, she said, not understanding. Of course, we're so proud. I looked at the disownment letter on the table. Their useless, hateful piece of paper. Then I looked at my binder. My proof. I slowly, calmly began to put my papers back into the binder. The press release. The contracts. Daisy, what are you doing? My father demanded. We are talking. No, I said, not looking up. I'm not. I'm done. I closed the binder. The thwack echoed again. I picked up the disownment letter. I held it in my hand. You wanted me to be erased, I said, my voice very low. You wanted me to be nothing. You went to the trouble of making it legal. It was a mistake, Daisy. A terrible mistake, my mother cried. No, I said. It was the first and only honest gift you've ever given me. I stood up. My chair scraped against the floor. Daisy, you sit down, my father commanded. He was used to being obeyed. I looked at him. Or what? You'll disown me? His face went pale. I took the disownment letter and I slid it back across the table toward him. You can keep this, I said. I already have my own. I gestured to my binder. My contracts. My new life. I have my own name, my own standing, My own company. You can't take anything from me because I have nothing that you gave me. I picked up my bag, with my binder in it. I turned. Daisy! It was Avery. Her voice cracked. It was a high, ugly sound. The sound of the golden child shattering. Daisy, wait! You can't just leave. What about us? What about the family? I stopped. I turned back to look at them one last time. The three of them frozen. My father trembling with rage and regret. My mother, her hands over her mouth. Avery, half standing, her face a mask of ugly, desperate confusion. That's a good question, Avery, I said. What about the family? You just signed a piece of paper that said I'm not in it. You should be happy. You've finally gotten rid of the formatting error. I turned and I walked away. I didn't run. I walked. I heard my own footsteps on the polished floor. I heard my mother start to sob, a loud, horrible sound. I heard my father hiss, Eleanor, stop it! Not here, I didn't look back. I walked past the maître d', who was staring, his face white. I pushed open the heavy glass doors and I was outside. The night air was cold. It hit my face and it felt like the first real breath I had taken in 20 years. It smelled like the city, like car exhaust and freedom. My phone was in my pocket. It started to vibrate. I pulled it out. It was 9:01 p.m. The embargo had lifted. My phone lit up. It was an explosion. A push notification from Forbes. Coal Logistics acquires RootFlow. TAP's founder Daisy Sterling as director. A notification from TechCrunch. The 6.2M acquisition that came from a coffee shop. A notification from the local business journal. Emails. LinkedIn alerts. My name. Daisy Sterling. I stood under a streetlight reading my own story. I glanced back just once at the restaurant window. Through the glass, I could see their table. They were just silhouettes. They were still frozen, shocked, powerless. They were inside in the dark with their useless letter. I was outside in the light, my name all over the news. They thought they were erasing me. They had just introduced me to the world. I didn't go back to the dorm. My lease was up. I had my new keys in my bag. I took a taxi to my new apartment. It was a clean, simple one-bedroom place high up, with a big window overlooking the city. It was empty, except for a mattress on the floor and a few boxes. It was all mine. I didn't sleep. I watched the city lights. The next morning, I went to my graduation ceremony. I sat between Ethan and Maya. When they called my name, I walked across the stage. I looked out at the crowd. I saw thousands of people, but I was not looking for anyone. Ethan and Maya were cheering, screaming my name. They were my family. After the ceremony, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Avery. Avery, we didn't mean it like that. Can we talk? I looked at the message. We didn't mean it like that. The classic non-apology. I didn't reply. A few days later, I was unpacking. A box of mail had been forwarded from my dorm. It was mostly junk mail, and one thick white envelope. It was from Maison Lumière. I opened it. The restaurant had mailed me the Disownment letter, the one I had slid back across the table. They must have found it after my family had stumbled out. Found at your table, a small note said. Thought you might want it. I held the letter. It felt toxic. My first instinct was to burn it, to shred it, but I didn't. I walked over to the wall where I had just hung my framed degree. I took the frame off the wall. I opened the back. I looked at the letter one last time. Sever all familial ties. I folded it neatly. I placed it in the frame behind my diploma. I put the backing on. I hung it back on the wall. It was not hidden. It was not a secret. It was documented. It was the foundation. It was the receipt for the price I had paid. It was the proof that my new life was not just given to me. It was earned. It was claimed. The texts kept coming. Avery, Daisy, please. People are asking questions about the acquisition. Dad is a mess. You need to call us. Avery, an hour later. You're being so childish. You're ruining this family. Mom, Daisy, darling. I know we were hard on you, but you're still our daughter. I bought you that blue dress you liked. It's here for you. Just come home. We can talk. Mom, a day later. Your father is very proud. He's telling everyone at the club. Please call. It's making us look bad. Making us look bad. That was it. They weren't sorry they did it. They were sorry I had succeeded. They were sorry I had exposed them. The last text was from my father. It came a week later. It was the first time he had ever texted me. Father, I have reviewed the public data on your acquisition. It's a strong move. I have some notes on your tax exposure and long-term investment strategy. Call me. We can discuss it. He didn't say I love you. He didn't say I'm sorry. He said I have notes. He was trying to manage my success. The accomplishment he didn't even know about, he now wanted to control. I read every single message. I felt the old familiar ache. The small 8-year-old girl inside me, the one with the telescope, still wanted her dad. But I was not 8 years old anymore. I set my phone face down on the counter. Some messages don't need a reply. Their words were weapons for 20 years. My silence was my shield. Now my silence was my power. I didn't need to yell. I didn't need to accuse. I didn't need to explain. Avery thought this was a fight. She thought I was trying to win. She didn't understand. I wasn't playing. I had already left the game. That morning I woke up early. It was the first day at my new job. I stood at my big window holding a cup of coffee. The real good-smelling coffee I'd learned to love. The sun was coming up. The dawn air was cold and clean. I breathed it in. I realized peace wasn't an apology. It wasn't a text message. It wasn't something they could give me or withhold from me. Peace isn't given. It's claimed.